Well, Western Lake Erie has been plagued by an increase in harmful algal blooms over the past decade, and these blooms can pose a risk to human and animal health and also impact the communities and the businesses that depend on the lake. Now there's a study underway to see if the air around those blooms can pose a threat to our own health. Toxic algal blooms in Lake Erie is the big story today. In fact, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, right now the Lake Erie algal bloom is spread across 180 square miles. Now, that's an increase since the last measurement back on July 1st. The bloom extends from Maumee Bay north to Stony Point in Michigan and south, stopping just east of Maumee Bay State Park. Lake Erie's algal blooms often caused by runoff pollution. In fact, according to the Alliance for the Great Lakes, this type of pollution typically occurs when the rainfall washes fertilizer and manure spread on large farm fields into the streams that then flow into Lake Erie. This fuels a crop of algae every year, and it can make water toxic to fish, wildlife, and people. In fact, you can see the current satellite imagery from the Ocean Land Color Imager and the True Color Imager showing the bloom's location and the extent. Take a look here. It's what we're looking at in the green and the blue forms here. As of July 7th, you can see that much of the bloom is still located near Maumee Bay on the Ohio-Michigan line. Now, if we move east just a little bit, you can see some of Sandusky Bay has a higher density algal bloom as well. This season's could be the worst algal bloom in 5 years for Lake Erie. In May, the National Centers for Coastal Ocean Science projections pointed towards a moderate to larger than moderate invasion of phosphorus loading into the body of water. NOAA projects this year's harmful algal bloom in western Lake Erie to fall between a 4.5 and a 7.5 on the severity scale. Now, just to give you some content here, the bloom in 2023 reached 5 on that 10-point scale, and the worst year was 2015 when the bloom exceeded the 10-point scale altogether. Lots of things go into play here. The abundance of phosphorus running into the tributaries that of course then feed into the lake being that primary factor. NOAA estimates the runoff by looking at the spring and the summer rainfall totals. And the algal blooms produce dangerous conditions for humans, fish, and wildlife, and that can lead to fish kills and beach closures. The big thing here, microcystin. According to the GLISA, one of 12 NOAA climate adaptation partnership teams that focus on helping the Great Lakes, rising carbon dioxide concentrations, the warm lake temperatures, and the longer stratified lake season, as well as an increase of rain and an abundance of nutrients all combined together here, causing a higher risk, particularly in the Lake Erie Basin. Well, the next question is, can toxic microcystin in the air impact your health? It's a question that researchers right here in Toledo are trying to answer now. We have Dr. David Kennedy, an associate professor of medicine at the University of Toledo, with us live this afternoon. So, doctor, tell us about the study and how will you research?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Christina. So we're really excited to be rolling out a new study funded by the National Institutes of Health and National Science Foundation that addresses this issue that you're talking about of airborne toxins. So it's important to know that first of all, why are we doing this study? We're doing it because the community cares about it, and we're in the community, and so we're interested in those questions. We get asked, constantly at the medical center about that, how the toxic algae can affect human health. And we know that a normal average person drinks about 2 liters a day, but you breathe on average about 11,000 liters a day. So breathing and our exposure through lungs is a really important route of exposure for anything. And I guess it's really important to point out, too, that, we don't know that. So the answers and the reason why we're doing this study is to see, what are the effects of these toxins. First of all, do they get into the air? And do they get into the air at concentrations enough that could harm human health? And then what are the impacts on human health? Who might be more susceptible and more at risk if those toxins do get aerosolized?
Sure. So how will you quantify the airborne particles? What's the plan here?
Sure. Yeah. So we're doing this through the University of Toledo is part of a larger network, about 12 other universities and organizations like NOAA that have both stationary and mobile units that are used to take air samples in, and then we take them back to the lab here. and we analyze those and detect what toxins we find on those. So that's a collaborative effort through multiple universities. And so we have stations throughout the Great Lakes Basin, and then, as I said, mobile stations throughout the north coast of Ohio.
Okay, and of course, when you're studying the impact on potential impact on humans, you need the humans. So what are you looking for right now?
Absolutely. So we're rolling out a community health study. So we're looking at 200 participants in Lucas, Ottawa, and Sandusky counties, and particularly people who live, work, or recreate near the western basin of Lake Erie. And who are interested in being part of a long-term study. So this is again funded by our partners at NIH and National Science Foundation. So we can look over 5 years and determine exactly what, how these people feel and how their lung function is impacted by living and recreating around the lake. And I think it's really important to emphasize and to distinguish, we don't know what the impact is. And so we're really interested, in finding the truth and finding out what that impact is. People are exposed to lots of things through the environment. Harmful algal blooms are just one of those things. So it's really important to design a study where we can, specifically test whether those toxins that are coming are actually, are they aerosolized? Do they reach concentrations that are biologically or physiologically significant? And then, what is the impact? We know that some people with any allergen or toxin, some people are more responsive or more sensitive than others. So we're interested in this study to find out what populations of patients might be more susceptible, if at all.
Right. Well, Dr. Kennedy, thank you so much for joining us live here on Action News at 4. If you'd like more information about this study, we'll be posting a link on our website, 13abc.com. Thanks again.
Thanks so much, Christina.
And according to the Solitude Lake Management, an organization that's dedicated to improving our water quality, there are some ways that you can go about helping prevent harmful algal blooms. That includes properly identifying them. HABs can manifest in parallel streaks or clump dots, as we saw on that map that we showed you before, the satellite imagery. Other blooms may look like spilled blue, green, or white paint, and then they might turn the water that bright pea soup green. We've seen that here before. Plus, make sure you dispose of any organic material, things like leaves, grass, and other debris. It should be bagged and removed from your property to prevent them from accumulating and then decaying right near a potential body of water. And you can stay up to date on all the progress with the Lake Erie algal blooms by downloading the 13 Action News app. It's available as a free download in your phone's app store.